Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Viswa Dar, and my presentation is on Saudi Arabia. The main 10 things that I will be discussing are society and culture, family values, meeting etiquette, dining etiquette, relationships and communications, business meeting etiquette, business negotiating, dress etiquette, business cards, gift giving etiquette, and then I'll wrap it up with recommendation and questions. As you already know the do's and don'ts of living in Saudi Arabia, I'll just focus on the leadership. Saudi Arabia is located in the Middle East. We'll move on to society and culture. What type of impact does religion have on the workplace? Islam is the main religion in Saudi Arabia, and Islamic Sharia governs all aspects of life, including the legislation of civil laws. During the past 3 decades, the country has undergone a great deal of infrastructure developments as well as lifestyle changes. The movement of modernization, however, is kept in compliance with Islamic Sharia, being defined as suitable for all times and places. Most Saudis incorporate religious rituals into their daily lifestyle. Almost all workplaces assign a room for employees to perform their prayers. The timing of noon, Zohar, and afternoon Asr prayers coincides within work hours. Most employees are allowed to take prayer breaks, which is about 10 to 15 minutes per prayer. It's not uncommon to see some supervisors and our staff perform their prayers in a mosque, if it happens to be located near work location. Moving on to family values. Would a colleague or employee expect special privileges or considerations given our personal relationship or friendship? Yes, including expectation of preferred treatment in hiring of his or her relatives and friends, and status upgrading. You're not obliged to grant such privileges, particularly if you feel your business is greatly disadvantaged. One classical example which you may consider in this respect, you and your family are granted a discount or an upgrade if you, as an executive or department head, have frequent business with a particular institution. It is possible nepotism and favoritism are rife in Saudi society, and you will no doubt encounter such work relationships. However, it is not necessary for you to contribute to such a situation if you really object to such behavior. Not all Saudis participate in such a system of hiring, and by participating you are aiding in a corruption of the system. If you do choose to participate in favoritism, then you will no doubt reap reciprocal benefits, but you may lose the respect of your other staff members. Moving on to meeting etiquette. I have a work-related problem with a colleague. Do I confront him or her directly, privately, or publicly? You may discuss work-related problems directly, but it's advisable to do it in a private manner with a respective employee or colleague. Generally, Saudis are on the bashful side, shy side, and they don't appreciate confrontation. A colleague who is having a problem with you or offended by something you have done may act in a distant manner or try to avoid you. When the problem has been negotiated, then you can approach the other party directly for a peace offering. Things that lead to fornication should be avoided in the first place, such as being alone with the opposite sex, flirtatious behavior, touching of the opposite sex will lead to kissing, will lead to adultery. There is a clear distinction between male and female roles in society, although women have been increasingly assuming more leading roles both in career and business. Certain jobs remain open only to men. This includes political, ministerial, diplomatic, and high-level managerial positions, field work which requires mingling with men, and some of the services jobs such as waitresses and flight attendants. Throughout the last decades, women have been given equal work opportunities, particularly in educational and medical field. Almost all educational institutions are segregated from elementary to university level. It is interesting to note that men and women working on the same profession are paid equally. Interesting. According to Islamic Sharia law, women have the full right to manage their financial possessions. Men are obliged to fully support their families regardless of the wife's financial status. Lucky. This example explains why most companies limit their home ownership program only to male employees. There is great gender disparity in Saudi Arabia. You may find yourself working with very few women, if any at all. If there are women, the workplace may be segregated, although this is not the case in all businesses. Female doctors will work exclusively with female patients, and male doctors with men. Moving on to dining etiquette. How important is it to establish a personal relationship with a colleague or client before getting to business? A colleague or a client can be invited to a cafe or to a restaurant to meet socially at first. Some Saudis exchange home invitations with business associates. Local attitude in this respect vary to a great extent. While some are quite liberal and open to social meetings, some are reserved and may reject an invitation outside the work environment. Your first impression meeting with a person may be a good indication to how open or reserved that person is. There will be some socializing to be done before business. You will drink tea, called kava, or coffee and ask about the welfare of each other's families. You may chat for up to an hour before you get to business. However, this is very traditional and your Saudi colleague may be more familiar with your Western business style. Take your cue from your colleague or client. Moving on to relationships and communications.
What should I know about the workplace environment, such as formality, timings, and deadlines? Colleagues are often addressed by their first names. It's customary, however, to address colleagues and or supervisor using the title Abu, which is a prefix, means the father of, followed by the name of a person's elder son. This indicates more familiar and respectful relationship. Timings. Punctuality is valued especially for bosses, by bosses. But a 5-minute delay may not be regarded by the employee as being unpunctual. An employee is excused to take some time from work for urgent family matters, or such as holidays as Eid after Ramadan. And during Ramadan, the hours of work have been reduced to 6 hours instead of 8 to 10 or overtime. Deadlines set within a reasonable time frame are to be met. It's not uncommon for employees of high grade codes to work overtime in order to meet a deadline. There is less of a sense of urgency surrounding due dates or when people are expected to arrive. If you ask for something to happen by a certain time, deadlines or punctuality, you will no doubt be told it will happen, inshallah, which means God willing. Moving on to business meeting etiquette. What qualities are most highly regarded in a local superior or manager? How will I know how my staff view me? The educational background of a local superior is truly valued as one of his or her key factor assets by both employer and employees. Other factors such as hands-on experience and positive attitude towards work comes next. Most employees look for leadership characteristics in their managers as it helps them learn and pursue their goals. Being personable and open to new ideas strengthens manager-subordinate relationship and plays an important source of employees' productivity. The same principles apply to a non-local manager or supervisor. Although more openness to new ideas somewhat expected from an expat boss, staff level of motivation, productivity, and friendliness attitude are indicators through which a manager can gauge their attitude towards him or her. Personal interactions amongst employees is another indicator. Your interpersonal and leadership skills will also be an asset as they may wish to learn from your working staff. In this case, you may be there to make changes and bring new skills to the work environment. Your staff may not approach you directly with problems. Be sure to create avenues through which they can privately approach a mediator who can take their problems to you. Moving on to business negotiating. In the workplace, how are decisions taken and by whom? Is it acceptable to go to my immediate supervisor for answers or feedback? Most supervisors delegate tasks to their professional staff. It's acceptable to go to immediate supervisors for answers and or feedback. Decisions may be made unilaterally by higher-ups with little or no explanation as to reasoning. Often Saudi businesses are connected to the government, so decisions may be made on a level far beyond your supervisor's control. Your directness of approach may not get the answers that you need. Saudi society is very non-confrontational. You may embarrass your employer if you are too direct and they may not be able to give criticism or direction in person. Go to a colleague that has the respect of your employer and ask them to take your issues to your boss. Be delicate when offering ideas or criticisms. Always offer a compliment as your main point and work in the idea or critique. If you treat your employer with the respect they expect from a Saudi, then you may be surprised and more easily earn the respect of your boss. Moving on to dress etiquette. It is Saudi law that when in public, women must cover themselves completely in abayas to keep the woman modest and not attractive to other men. In Islam, women choose to wear hijabs. Moving on to business cards. How do I make contacts? By building networks through giving cards to everyone you meet, because some way or another they might be a relative of someone you might be working with, so make a good impression. Moving on to gift-giving etiquette. What motivates my local colleagues to perform well on the job? Saudi Arabia is a welfare state, so money problems are not such an issue for most Saudis. The biggest motivating factor would probably be high status, which can also go together with high income.
Give your colleagues challenging work and they might find that very rewarding, especially as there is so little else to entertain them with. If the air conditioning ever breaks down, you will no doubt lose your entire staff. You don't want to do that. I guess this was the last part, so I'll be moving on to the references. Here are my references that I accumulated and some from my personal experience. If you would like to know more about Saudi Arabia, I would suggest this website. It is actually a video through the eyes of an expat living and working in Saudi Arabia. I enjoyed watching it, and I'm sure you will too. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at misbah.dar@ulet.ca. I would like to leave you with something to ponder about when you're given the chance to live in Saudi Arabia. You're conforming to the norms there, even though you're not being submissive to their religion, but being respectful and valuing their culture and the reasoning behind it. Last but not the least, I would like to thank my professor Shahid for his guidance and technical support, my parents for the pictures, my family for the time, and thank you for watching my presentation. Bye!